Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tarot Today. I am Delphine, and I'm here with
Adrien.
amazing.
Hey, how are you, Delphine?
I'm good. I'm so excited to talk about the Court of Swords.
Yeah, it is exciting, but we've seen in our previous episode how tricky it can be to talk about the court cards. And of course, I do not want to discourage people or tell them, oh, it's complicated, but there can be so rich, right?
No, yeah,
There's a
no,
real
it's complicated, you guys. It's complicated. I would just like to tell everybody that it's complicated. It's like if you and I are finding it difficult to kind of like deliver this information to people, it's complicated. Because yes, we understand it, but it's so hard to explain. And that's because like we're literally kind of like talking about these templates for uh these template personalities essentially, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. They are a little tricky, but you have to always see them within the context that you're reading, right? Within the question, within, how do they appear in your spread? And I think make friends with them. They are complicated, yes, not because they're difficult, but because there's a richness there. There's a richness of psychology, there's a richness of action, right? So we've decided to make we had one episode which was an introduction onto the court cards, right? And if you haven't listened to that, I do encourage you to go and listen to it, which is about understanding the elements, is understanding the function of each character, uh, and so we have page that starts, knights that move, queen nurtures, and king rules. Right. These are the sort of like the basics that we have Sorry, I need to plug that in. These are the basics of the functions of our cards here. Now, the suit of sword is the suit of air. Now, if you remember, we talked about each one of these characters being associated with an element. The page
Mhm.
is with earth,
Earth,
knight, air, queen, water, king, fire.
fire. Yeah.
Right. So, where do we go from there, Delphine?
I think that first, like, we should just kind of understand that there's a light side and a dark side to each of these court cards, right? Like, I mean, sometimes these cards are positively aspected, and then other times these cards are negatively aspected, or they're in like kind of a harder position. So, ultimately, like, first, a brilliant mind can heal, teach, liberate, reveal truth, strategize, right? And then an unbalanced mind can rationalize cruelty or spiral into anxiety or detach from emotion or even overanalyze, like just overanalyze until they're paralyzed, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliantly put. You brilliantly put. I love how you bring this forward. Like a brilliant, kind mind can do all these caring things and help, and a brilliant, twisted, or mean mind can actually manipulate into hurting for their own profit. I love that you've put this forward, because we have so many examples at the moment. Very famous and very. I mean, the world. We're not here to do politics.
The Epstein files.
Ah, yeah, okay. Here we go.
Okay,
Uh,
okay, that's an off limits topic too. So Katy Perry, the royal family, and the Epstein files.
we're not here to do politics, but
But
we are in the realms of swords after all. So, it's like saying that art is not political, and this is BS. Art is about
it is
it
about
is.
politics.
If it's not
Yeah,
political, it's not art, and this is just something you will not. There is no way you're going to change my mind of this. Art is political. And when
absolutely.
theaters tell you, and I'm not going to mention any of them, but I could, when they tell you we don't do politics, we're neutral, this is BS. Because when Verdi wrote Nabucco, it was extremely political. Art is political. Anyway, tarot can be political. Tarot is political because we're trying to come across put forward a message here, and it is very important to not be completely neutral. The point of this podcast is to not do politics, but to try to inform and talk about tarot. Absolutely. But
Yeah. And so the suit of swords court cards, you know, primarily it's like these cards are appearing around usually communication styles, emotional defense mechanisms,
Yeah.
um, intellectual identity, trauma responses, right?
Mhm.
Boundaries, justice, conflict, hence the politics aspect, right? But also psychological adaptation. Um, so, yeah, I think understanding. Oh, where do you think that we should go from there, Adrian? Because I don't want to go too fast too soon. Maybe we should talk about like the developmental arc of the suit of those swords court cards.
Yeah, I think
So,
let's start from the beginning. Let's just start easily. Let's start with the
okay.
Page of Swords. I think I like that you've started talking about the duality, the sort of the light and the shadow aspect of this card.
Hmm.
The Page of Swords, we said he's a beginner, he's a starter, he doesn't really know, he learns, he's also the messenger, right?
Hmm.
So the Page of Swords, when we talk about sword, it's about the air, it's about the mental, it's about the mind. So you could say that we could see this card as a new way of thinking, new way, a new strategy, a message arriving, because the mind, can be seen as the source can be seen as, the internet as well, what's, going through the wireless aspect, right? So
Hmm.
this is an email that could come to you, right?
Hmm.
Uh,
hmm
but in the negative aspect, I think that the Page of Sword could give us this sense of being uh, pretending to not know and being manipulative.
Yeah. So the Page of Swords, like I often see the Page of Swords as like a voyeur. It's somebody who watches.
Yeah,
So oftentimes like the Page of Swords is like it's very Gemini in nature. It's very mercurial. So it's like it's about curiosity and hypervigilance and also like a bit of intellectual awakening, observation or even skepticism, or like information gathering, like intel. So it's like, this is like a personality that overanalyzes conversations, or perhaps they're a researcher, right?
yeah,
Or maybe they're like, this is somebody who's becoming mentally overstimulated, or like somebody that reads the subtext of a situation very carefully, right? Because again, there's this element of hypervigilance that can come with the Page of Swords.
yeah.
So, yeah, it's like, I mean, this is somebody who's constantly kind of maybe scanning for inconsistencies as well,
Mm-hmm. He doesn't
potentially.
engage. That's the thing. I think this what we can see with the Page of Sword is that he does all these things you described, but he doesn't engage. And we can
Yeah.
see very clearly in the drawing, in the picture, he holds the sword, but he doesn't look at it, right? He looks away from the sword and he's got this sort of position, right? So it's kind of like he strategizes, analyzes, but doesn't really engage with what's happening. It's somebody that watches a little bit from afar, somebody that's
Hmm.
not necessarily engaged. Now, you
Oh
can
my
look.
God, me in like every single group chat. It's like, well, or like any work group chat, it's like the messages come up and I'm just like looking,
Ah!
not engaging.
Oh my God, I'm the opposite. I'm like, da, 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 da. What do you mean art is not political?
You tell them.
Um, yes, it's the Page of Sword is all these things, right? It's also learn, it's remember that the pages learn, they are at the beginning of a journey, they're really they're inexperienced, they're inexperienced. There is an element of this.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
So, like, from pop culture, it's like, somebody that could be like the Page of Swords is Dorota from Gossip Girl. Do
Uh-huh.
you get so like, did you watch Gossip Girl?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so a lot of people understand this reference, not no shade, Adrian. But in Gossip Girl, like Dorota was the maid, and she was like Blair Waldorf's maid, and like Dorota was always kind of like hovering around corners, like listening to Blair's
Ah, okay.
conversations, or like gathering intel for Blair. And then yeah, and so Dorota was just kind of always there, and she was watching.
I see. Okay. I mean, absolutely. That is definitely a Page of Swords attitude. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Not engaging, but also I think the Page of Sword in this case could be then deciding which side they're going to be taking depending on what is more convenient for them.
Yeah. Yeah. The Page of Swords can, like, I mean, depending on the way that it shows up, it can be like, a bit manipulative for sure.
Yeah. Whereas the Knight of Swords is not manipulative.
No, this is somebody that doesn't have like enough of a like if they're not tactical enough. It's like the Knight of Swords just kind of rushes in.
There's no
It's
filter,
like,
which is exactly
yeah.
what I did about 10 minutes ago. That is very Knight of Sword.
Art is political. But to be fair, like
Yes.
but it is.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I mean I do agree. But yeah, so the Knight of Swords, it's kind of like a mental force. Somebody who's like it's aggressive communication. Like I always kind of see it as like the ADHD card. It's kind of like you walk inside, you put down your keys, you start taking off your socks, you're on the phone, you put bread in the toaster, then you're like, oh, I don't want to eat bread, and then you take the bread out of the toaster, and then I don't know, like the washing machine goes off, and then you're like, oh, I have to empty this out, and then like you forget where your keys are, and then you're trying to figure out where you're going to hang up your clothes to dry, and it's just kind of like it's just like a bit chaotic, and then like you're on the phone and maybe you're talking about politics, and then
About art being political. Sure.
yeah, yeah, and then maybe you look at the art on your wall and it no longer, I don't know, coincides with your political beliefs, and then you smash it on the ground and kick it.
Wow. Okay. Sure. And that is
Yeah,
the so.
but that's Knight of Swords. Again, it's like it's a bull in a china shop, I think. There's like, it's kind of like it's ruthless momentum, right? It's like it's urgency, it's intellectual ambition, it's conviction. Um, yeah.
Is I think that the Knight of Swords fights for an idea for the sake of it. There's very much about, okay, this is the idea, I'm going to fight for it, no matter what, I'm charging forward. It's a very fast-moving card. And it's kind of what you've described earlier with your ex with the message, and you ended up having a fight, right? And I think, swords with each other can easily clash, right? So we have to, you hear these clinging sounds, of maybe if you have two sword chord cards coming together, are they in a position where they can actually bring their swords together to fight for the same cause, or are they going to clash? And I think this is an important question to ask yourself when chord cards come up in a reading. uh, uh, are they together? Are they against each other? Especially with the sword, it's an important question to ask yourself here. You know,
Yeah.
what
Yeah,
is
no,
the
I
what
think
what is the good aspect of the Knight of Swords? What would you say? Because we've kind of described a ruthless, crazy, all over the place aspect of the Knight of Swords, but.
yeah. I mean, I think that like I always get quite happy when I see the Knight of Swords in a reading because I'm like, oh, at least there's momentum, at least there's movement. Like, I mean, I don't know about you, but I hate it when things are slow or like when they're stagnant. So, even though I got into a fight with my ex, I was kind of like, oh, well, actually, you taught me this one. Action brings clarity.
Ah, yeah, action does bring clarity. Yeah,
Yeah.
the Knight of Sword will bring you clarity.
Yeah. So it's like, yeah. So it's like, I mean, I oftentimes see it as like a swift arrival or a swift departure. And
Yeah.
sometimes that can actually be quite auspicious.
Hmm. Yes, 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 absolutely. Swift. So there is a fast action there, very fast action. I
Mhm.
mean, it's air of air. It is the hurricane, and sometimes the hurricane is necessary to clear, not the hurricane, the tornado, to clear whatever is not working anymore so we can rebuild, right?
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not saying it's a good thing to lose your home, in a tornado. This is absolutely not what I'm saying. But metaphorically, getting rid of whatever, sweeping away whatever needs to be moved, so we can actually rebuild. On top of that, would be
Yeah.
a good thing.
So, like, just to kind of sum it up, just in a couple of different ways, like, the Knight of Swords as a person is someone who probably interrupts somebody or can escalate conflict rapidly or, can make impulsive decisions and can weaponize words, right? But then,
Mhm.
like, its expression in a relationship. could be like, fast moving connections or like an intense debate or like sharp arguments or even like a bit of like emotional impatience. Like I remember like sometimes like I would be Page of Cups, my boyfriend would be Knight of Swords. It's like, I'd be like, oh, look at all the flowers and like all the pretty things in the world. And he'd be like, okay, come on, we got to get a move on. Like, we got to get to our destination, blah, blah, blah. Like, enough. Like, stop talking. Like, why are you driving so slow? Because I would have a habit of driving really slow, like when I saw something pretty and I would just like kind of like admire it and he'd be like, stop it, we're on the highway. Um, so like and like, its expression in like career, for example, it's like, the Knight of Swords, litigation, debate, political activism, right? Like, we are loving talking about politics. We just keep saying the word politics, but we're not actually discussing politics.
Well,
That's my favorite
no,
part
I
about
think
this.
I think it's better to say the word politics than instead of actually going into it because then we're opening a kind of worm. So
Yeah,
just by
that's
saying politics, I think we're safe.
that's true. But it's also about crisis management and like, emergency journalism or investigative journalism, right? That's very swordsy. Startup culture or like high pressure leadership,
Hmm.
like also very Knight of Swords.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, absolutely, I agree. I think the Knight of Swords, one thing we have to see here, what we don't have in the elements, because I think when we read tarot and when we have the cards in front of us in a specific spread, we have to think about what is the nature of the question, right? And if the nature of the question is, for example, a relationship, I like to see how many cups I have in front of me, and right, and if there are cups, if there aren't cups, and if there aren't any cups, for instance, then I'm thinking, okay, we're talking about emotions, relationships, but there are no cups, so there is a problem here. Now, with the Knight of Swords, what we can look at is that it's air of air, not hair, sorry, air of air. I am French after all. It's air of air. And what we're lacking of here is the earth element. We're lacking earth. Lacking groundedness, and we're lacking water, emotion, awareness, right? So with the Knight of a Sword, we have no groundedness, we have no nurturing, we have no emotion, and it's really about um, fighting for an idea, moving for an idea, right? And so this is very important to kind of think about that air of air doesn't have these other elements to counterbalance it, to give it a little bit of balance, basically, to this tornado which is going forward, right? You know what I mean? So we have to think about how these elements do come at play, because with the Queen of Swords, we have something slightly different here. We have the Queen, which is water, and we have the Sword, which are air, right? So there is here a more calculated, there's a nurturing aspect to the air element, to the sword. You see where I'm going, what I'm trying to get at here, Delphine? Am I making any
Yeah.
sense?
No, no, no. You're making perfect sense. But like it's interesting, right? Because it's like the Queen of Swords, she gets such a bad rap. Everybody always just wants to think that she's like a bitter, cold B word, but she's not, right? She can be, but like at the same time, like, this is emotional intelligence. This is emotional intelligence, water and air. So this is somebody who is emotionally intelligent because she has suffered, right? It's like, this is someone that has the wisdom and like has gone through pain, gone through suffering, and therefore like knows what to expect, can see the signs, and can call you out for your BS, right? Not your BS and not your BS, Adrian, but whoever's BS. But the Queen of Swords, like, she represents discernment and like psychological clarity and boundaries and precision. It's like, she can like apply her mind um to her emotions or to the emotions of others. This could actually probably be like a very talented psychoanalyst or something like that.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, so, like, the Queen of Swords is going to ask, like, is this true? Is this consistent? Is this emotionally safe? And like, what's actually happening beneath the surface? It's like, the Queen of Swords often develops. after a betrayal or like grief or disappointment or like prolonged emotional disillusionment. It's like, it's funny because it's like whenever I'm pissed off with any man, I will show up as the Queen of Swords in his reading.
Yeah. Well,
Whenever I am mad.
traditionally, the Queen of Sword in cartomancy is the widow or the one that's been wronged,
Mhm,
so the one that's been hurt, right? And so it's absolutely in line with what you're saying. There's this emotional intelligence, and is also this understanding. There's this empathy that the Queen of Sword can have to understand other people's pain and other people's difficulties, but she's also quite impartial, right? What I
mhm,
like in this Wade Smith deck is that her head and her sword are above the clouds,
mhm,
right?
mhm,
If we see the picture here, her head is above the cloud.
mhm. Because she thinks that fantasy is dangerous, without evidence, right?
Yeah, so she kind of like she's above that. She understands. She sees the clouds and she sees the gray, but she's above it. She understands it, right? And she's very, yeah, she can cut right through. She understands the pain, the difficulty, and I love the fact that you said that she can be a brilliant psychoanalyst because absolutely right, absolutely right.
Mhm. And like at her highest expression, it's like the Queen of Swords is like wise and articulate. She's perceptive and she's really fair. She's emotionally honest and like very deeply self-respecting.
Uh-huh.
But that then, like the shadow of the Queen of Swords is that she can be cutting and critical, hypercritical actually, emotionally defensive and quite detached and also intimidating, rejecting vulnerability before it can reject her. I mean, classic Queen of Swords is like Meryl Streep in The Devil Wears Prada,
Oh, yeah. Oh my God,
right?
you see the second one?
I haven't seen the second one yet. I
Oh my
really want
God,
to
you
go
gotta
see
go
it.
see it.
Yeah, I bet it was so good.
Yes, yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. We have Miranda, what's the oh, I can't remember what's the last name.
Miranda. Sorry. I tried. I like your accent.
Miranda Priestley, I think her name is in the film. Yeah, absolutely. The Queen of Swords is all this, and she could be manipulating. The shadow aspect could be that she knows so well, she understands so well. She could be really manipulating situations to her advantage.
Mhm,
Absolutely. But then we step into the King of Swords, right? And this is again slightly different because the King of Swords is not going to have this watery, nurturing aspect, right? He's not going to have the empathy that the Queen would have, right? The King of Swords is going to be a lot more, there's going to be fire and air here, right? This fire of air, and so he's a judge,
mhm,
right? He's going to make the rules. He's going to make the law that you have to abide, and the law that he's going to be making, it's very clear that it has to be followed. He's looking at you straight on, and I think this is very telling. The Queen of Sword is looking towards the side. It's a softer way. She's not looking at you straight on, but the King of Sword is actually looking at you, and the sword could be falling on you at any time, right? Because
mhm,
he's the judge. No?
mhm. No, I mean, I completely agree with you. Like, I mean, this is like the King of Swords, like, is full intellectual mastery, right? And he is like a rational authority, or like he's passing ethical judgment. It could even be like strategic leadership, intellectual integrity. List goes on. But he's ethical and he's brilliant and he's fair and strategic, calm under pressure, respectable.
Yeah.
But then like on the negative side, what is the King of Swords like?
Tyrannical.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Very tyrannical.
Emotionally inaccessible, cold, calculating, detached from humanity. Like this is somebody who like potentially could be quite sadistic,
Yeah.
you know?
Absolutely.
Um, but then also it's like, I mean, it's interesting because like, I mean, you already kind of said this, but like career expression, like this, a judge, a CEO, surgeons, right? Surgeons, the precision required of a surgeon.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like military strategists, professors, policymakers, analysts.
hmm No, absolutely. Which is very different than what we could see in the Knight of Sword. You know, the Knight of Sword charges without really grounding any idea, without having any empathy, without having like understanding the other's point of view. Whereas the king and the queen, they do take into consideration. They have strategized, right? So if the Page of Swords strategizes but does not get involved, and the Knight of Swords gets involved without strategizing, the queen and king have different aspects, you know, where they will have a certain maturity and understanding of the situation where they're going to be acting, where they're going to be taking decisions, you know?
Hmm. And it's also interesting as well because it's like, I mean, these court cards, like, I mean, in like, I mean, specifically the queen and the king, like when they are more negatively aspected, like, right, it's like, I mean, we see someone or we see two people, two personalities that can be quite devoid of their emotions. And so then it's also kind of like worth asking, okay, like, how has somebody actually gotten here, right? Because I mean, inherently, it's like people are emotional beings, we're emotional creatures. And so, I always kind of wonder if, like, it's due to an intense betrayal or, like, I mean, some kind of like family dynamics that didn't allow for, like, emotional expression in the household, or if it was like survival through intelligence or just kind of self-reliance at its extreme level, right? Or hyper independence. But yeah, but it's interesting. But this is why I think many swords court cards do, like, as I suppose, on the more positive end, they appear brilliant and very competent, right?
Yeah.
Um, Observant and successful. Um, but yeah, but internally, I kind of feel like some of the swords court cards are like a little bit exhausted, um, or can be at least.
They can be, and I think I always like to see I like this idea of the elements, understanding which elements are at play, and therefore are the elements nourishing each other, or are they working against each other, you know? And I
Yeah.
think some of them can replenish and work together, and others can be quite difficult to come together.
hmm It's also interesting because, like, one thing that I just want to point out about the swords courts is that they have this butterfly symbolism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And what do you think of that?
Well, the butterfly is a transformation from the caterpillar to the butterfly, right? It's
Yeah. Yeah.
it's transforming oneself to this animal which is crawling, right? And working hard, crawling to eventually become the butterfly. The butterfly does not appear in the page and the knight, it appears in
Mm-mm.
the queen and the king. So there's
hmm
been a development, you know, so you're not born with this intelligence. It's something that is being developed and something that's being matured, created, transformed through the years, through experience, through understanding strategy, maybe empathy and law and rules and so on, to be able to get to the point of the queen and king. Because as we saw, the page analyzes but does not get involved, the knight gets involved but does not analyze. As the king and queen, the butterfly appears because there is a transformation and a maturity. This is what I see in the butterfly.
Love it.
Yeah.
Sexy. Yeah. I think you said that well. Thanks.
Art is political.
Oh. Mhm.
Great, great. Well, I think that's quite a bit on the sword court cards. What do you think, Delphine?
Yeah, yeah. I think that we should go over well, obviously we're gonna go over the other three courts. How about we do cups court cards next?
Let's do cups next. Fantastic.
Okay.
For our next
Excited.
episode, we'll do
Okay.
the cups.
See you soon, everybody.
See you soon. Bye
Bye.
bye.